Hi everyone, I'm Megan, a Film Club reporter, and welcome to today's Film Club live show.
Hello everyone, I'm Rico from the Film Club team, and today Megan and I will be interviewing music composer Debbie Wiseman, and we'll be discussing the art of composing music for the screen. Now don't forget, we are live, and all the details to contact us are scrolling across the bottom of the screen now.
So let's get started. Hello Debbie, and welcome to the Film Club live studio.
Thank you.
Hi, Deb.
Hi, hello everyone.
Debbie, you started out your career as a pianist and writing music for orchestras. What made you want to move into writing music for the screen?
Well, I started as a pianist, you're right, and I played the piano from quite an early age, but I really liked writing my own tunes. And as well as learning all the standard piano pieces that I was given by my teacher at school, I also like making up my own music and writing my own tunes. So it felt quite natural to actually go into composing. And I love the idea of writing for pictures because there's something really wonderful about getting a story, a scenario, characters, locations to inspire the music. Suddenly, you've got all these things around you to inspire you, not just sitting at the piano thinking, what shall I write today? Here's a film and a story, and it really, really helps you be creative and write something special.
Sometimes there's nothing scarier than the blank page, is there?
Exactly.
Okay, so if you've got something visual that you can
actually latch onto.
Yeah.
And if the story is very dramatic or it's very magical or it's a love story, immediately you sort of think, oh, I'm going to write this kind of tune or this kind of music. So it's really wonderful to have.
Brilliant. And also, did you find it an easy transition from pianist to composer?
It sort of went hand in hand. It wasn't really a transition. It was more that as I was playing the piano and learning the piano, I would be alongside writing my own tune. So it was never really a transition. It just all sort of flowed quite naturally.
Was there a particular director or composer that inspired you?
Not really a particular director or composer. I mean, I love going to the cinema. I used to watch lots and lots of films and love the soundtrack and thinking, wouldn't it be wonderful to write something that would bring pictures to life? Because that's what music does. But I don't think it was ever a particular film or a soundtrack, just loving the cinema in general.
Okay, great. Also, make sure that you check out the Film World Music in Film resource on the website that we've just put on there. We've called it Dynamic Duos, and it features long-term collaborators like composers you may well have heard of, like Bernard Herrmann, who wrote music for many Alfred Hitchcock films, and also John Williams and Steven Spielberg, so check that out.
We have a fun quiz for you now. Please tweet in your answers and we'll reveal the answer at the end of the show. What was voted by the American Film Institute as the greatest soundtrack of all time? Was it A, Psycho, B, The Godfather, or C, Star Wars?
Let us know, and let us know what you think. I think you might be surprised. Please also tweet us in your very favourite film soundtracks as well. We'd absolutely love to hear them. From my point of view, one of my favourites is the zither music played by Anton Karas in a film called The Third Man. What's yours, Megan?
My favourite would probably be a Nanny McPhee film, the second one, because it's got happy moments and sad moments. And it's
really varied score, isn't it? It's really good.
How about yourself, David?
Favourite film scores, I love John Williams, we've talked about him, E.T. and Harry Potter. Love John Barry's music, Dances with Wolves, Out of Africa. Big epic scores have got really great melodies.
Excellent stuff. We've had a few other suggestions come in. Similarly epic from Joe, Once Upon a Time in the West by Ennio Morricone, brilliant one. A sci-fi classic as well, Blade Runner by Vangelis. So yeah, keep the suggestions coming in and we'd love to hear more from you.
Debbie, as a composer, what do you think is the most useful instrument to be able to play?
Well, I learnt the piano and I'm a pianist, so that is a very useful instrument because at the piano you've got almost the whole orchestra in front of you. You've got the very low notes, you've got the very high notes, you've got the very mid-range notes. But if you play the guitar, or if you play the flute, or if you play the clarinet, whatever instrument you like the sound of and want to play, I don't think it matters. I think you can write whatever instrument you play. Composer friends of mine play the viola, they play the cello. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that you love making music and that you like writing music. And then you'll make it work whatever instrument you play.
Brilliant. It's about just finding a sound that resonates with you.
Yeah. Finding a sound that resonates with you and then working out how on earth you're going to write for it. You know, it's hard enough learning to play an instrument, but then learning how you're going to write for that instrument or loads of instruments at the same time. You know, it's a skill that you develop over quite a few years.
Time and practice and everything.
Yeah.
Is the piano still your favourite instrument to work with, you think? Or?
Yeah, probably it is, because I feel really, really comfortable sitting at the piano. You know, it's the instrument that I've learned from such a young age. So I sit at the piano and I write, and I feel really comfortable there. But, you know, I mean, my composition teacher used to say it'd be good to play a scale on every instrument of the orchestra just to know how it feels. So I might pick up a guitar, I might pick up a violin or a flute, and just feel it and know how it sounds, and that helps you when you come to write for it.
Oh, great stuff. I think we've got a question come in from the hotline earlier that we can listen to.
Oh.
Hi, my name's Chris. I'm 15 and I live in St Paul's. What is the most unusual musical instrument you have used on a film?
Thanks very much, Chris.
Just to recap that, in case you didn't catch it, Chris from St Paul's wants to know, what is the most unusual instrument you have ever used on a film?
I've used quite a lot. Hi, Chris. I've used quite a lot of unusual instruments, because sometimes you have to write scores that aren't set in the Western world and they're set in other weird and wonderful locations. And I wrote a music for a film that was Middle Eastern, and I needed to create a kind of Arabic soundtrack. And I used two different instruments. One was called a duduk and one was called an oud. And a duduk is like a sort of Arabic oboe, and it sounds very exotic and weird and wonderful. And an oud is like an Arabic guitar, and it doesn't look a lot dissimilar to this, and it sounds amazing. It's got the most fantastic resonant sound, but it does sound quite sort of exotic.
It's got its own unique flavour to it.
Exactly, and a lot of these instruments that you don't hear of ever because they're so unusual have a very particular sound.
Absolutely, but it makes it distinctive for people watching, because they might not have heard that before, I guess. Well, we were very lucky to visit Debbie at her studio one day, and she talked to us all about the process involved in composing a piece of music for the screen. So let's take a look.
Well, I'm working on Land Girls, which is a lovely series for the BBC, and I'm trying to get the mood right for the opening of the series. It starts very gently, and you see them in the field just doing what they're doing, and then it cuts to a little boy running after a plane. And what I need to do there is create a feeling of excitement and energy. And so going completely away from the rather lyrical opening, which is what starts the series, and then going to something which builds the excitement and lifts. And then you see the plane in the air and it takes off. And the music then needs to build the emotion and feel very romantic and uplifting. And that's what I'm trying to do. Every instrument of the orchestra has its own character. Flutes are quite gentle, bassoons are quite low, and sometimes used for sort of comedy moments, because they sort of boom, 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 they've got that kind of sound. Flutes play higher, they're up here somewhere. They're often used for bird song. Horns and trumpets and trombones and brass, they're often used for sort of epic moments in films because of their grandeur and because of their stature and because they sound really bold. Piano is often used for all different kinds of things, it's so versatile. And strings are used generally for warmth, and you hear them a lot in love stories. Whenever you want something romantic, you'll go to strings. But also they can be fantastically full of energy, and you can use them for drama. Strings are sort of the most versatile group of instruments in the orchestra. So that's violins, violas, cellos and basses. And you can use them for almost anything. The lovely thing about working in this particular film is that I can use an orchestra. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, I think, just with the piano playing the tune, because it's a very little pianistic little tune. And then when the main theme comes in, I think I'll bring in the strings and the violins will come in, and it'll suddenly sound much richer and fuller. So that will create a sense of warmth, and suddenly it'll build the score. And then when the fast bit starts and we're trying to build to this lovely, happy and joyful and exciting moment, and it needs to be really full of anticipation and looking at the plane in the air, I'll let the strings go really fast and maybe use the violins playing really, really fast. And that will build the excitement. Then I'll bring in the woodwind and then the brass. And everybody then will come in at the big moment when the plane's in the air, and it'll sound much richer and fuller. And then it'll come down at the end, but we'll still have everybody just at the end as the plane reaches the ground. And that'll give it a really nice shape. So it'll start quite gently just with the piano, then the strings do more, then the horns come in and the rest of the brass, and then we build everybody to the end. So it'll give it a really nice shape and create a lovely sense of expectation and this sort of joyful, happy ending. So when I've worked out what I'm going to be writing and what the tunes are going to be and what the shape of the music's going to be, then I start deciding who's going to play and what instruments are going to be doing what. So I might start thinking about, okay, what's the flute going to be doing? And so I'll find my flute on the computer, and this is my flute. And I'll play in the flute part. And then when I've done that, I'll start thinking maybe about the brass and what are the brass going to be doing. So I'll find my horns, and these are my French horns, which sound lovely and grand and epic. And I'll start working out what they're going to be doing. And then I might decide to use, what else? Maybe a bit of trumpet. So I'll find my trumpet. And I'll start working on the trumpet part. And each instrument gets played in individually, one by one, until I've got the final score and the final cue. And when I've got the whole thing together, I'll then play it back and hear how it sounds. And then I'll put it with a picture, and hopefully the two work seamlessly together and it'll all feel like a piece of film music.
Well, it's absolutely amazing to see the different stages involved and then see the final piece of music play out alongside the scene on screen. I've got a few favourite soundtracks popping in, haven't we?
So Noah at Wick Primary School loves the Star Wars 3, so well done to Noah.
Unbeatable films, thanks Noah.
Dan loves songs from the Goonies, so hi Dan.
Thanks for that, Dan. We've also got a suggestion from Matt, Wall-E by Thomas Newman, because it fits well for the character Wall-E and it represents his character well, which is brilliant. We've also got a couple of suggestions from Washington Media Studies Film Club. Not one I'm familiar with, The Fountain by Clint Mansell, and the Lord of the Rings soundtrack as well. Epic stuff there.
So how long does it take to usually to compose the music for a film from start to finish?
Start to finish, it varies hugely. I mean, sometimes you have to do it so fast. One film I was on called Wild, I had 3.5 weeks to write all the music for the film. Other films, like Thomas Midnight Garden, I had about maybe 6 weeks, 7 weeks, but it's still not a lot of time when you've got to write all that music and it has to fit the picture perfectly, has to tell the story, has to follow the characters, has to develop through the film. When you think of all that and having to cram that into 6 weeks, it's quite a short space of time, so you work really, really hard. Yeah,
I find it astonishing that, say, a film like Wild, which is how, I mean, from a film to, from the very beginning, the idea to a release date is years often, and you have 3.5 weeks to do all the music, which is always on during the film.
I know. Well, because what happens is that as the editing, it sort of gets put later and later into the production sometimes. So by the time the film's complete, they've spent so much time editing and lots of changes have been made to the film that the music sometimes has to be scrunched into a really short time frame. Not always. Not always. Sometimes it varies, and sometimes you might read the script and you have a bit more time to think about what you're going to do before you dive in and start to write the score.
Wow. Never the same.
So, a question from Matt. How do you come up with different ideas for music for different styles of film?
Hi Matt, thanks for your question. It's a really good question because the great thing is with a film is that you get loads of different inspiration. You know, with Tom's Midnight Garden, it's a magical adventure story, and that immediately suggests a type of music. If it's a comedy film, then perhaps you might write lighter music. If it's an epic action adventure film, you're thinking in a bigger scale musically. So the great thing is that there's inspiration coming at you all the time from the film, and your job as a composer is to sort of translate that into tunes and melodies and harmonies that will sit perfectly with the film, and that's the job. But you've got the inspiration to start with, so it's a help.
Excellent. Also on the clip there, just now, you talked all about melody, and obviously that's what makes such a memorable soundtrack. I mean, where do you think melody comes from, the inspiration to create something new? Is it music that you listen to at the time that informs it, or...?
Well, I think you sort of have to absorb everything as a film composer, because you never know what you're going to be asked to write next. You know, one day you might be doing a costume drama, the next day you're doing an action adventure film. So you have to absorb everything and be open to all kinds of music. But the melody you write for the particular film has to come from you, from your heart. And you have to look at the film, and I watch it over and over again, sometimes 3 or 4 times, before I start to write. And then I'll sit at the piano and I'll start to improvise, and I'll come up with some different melodies. And I sort of narrow it down. Okay, this one is starting to work.
Okay, so then teasing it out.
And by improvising and by working at the piano and listening and watching, slowly you start to build the score.
Yeah.
But it's a slow process sometimes. You know, you have to take your time a little bit.
And at what point do you get brought onto a production, and who do you work most closely with?
You work most closely with the director. The director is the person that oversees the creative part of the job generally. So I'll work with him or her, and we'll sit around the piano and we'll play through the themes, and we'll decide where the music should go and where it should start and finish, and the style of it and what it's doing to help the film. You know, should it be underlying the dialogue? Should it be creating drama for the action? Should it be adding pace? Should it be very delicately underscoring something? Should it be adding tension or magic? All those things are discussed with the director. Sometimes I'm brought on really, really early at the script stage, and I might get ideas then, but more often than not, it's later in the day, and the film might already be in production. They'll be filming, they might even be editing, and then it's, right, let's talk to the composer about the kind of score we're going to have.
And obviously all these elements come into play, but what do you love most about your job?
I love writing music. I love coming up with themes. I like working with the people in the production and collaborating with them, you know, and you get a lot of inspiration, not only from the film, but the people that are making the film. The directors steer you in a particular way musically, and they might say they want the score to be really epic and dramatic, and want you to come up with something that is in their head, but they can't write music, so they're asking you to do it. So it's a lovely thing to do. And I just love writing tunes, writing melodies, and particularly for film, because, you know, you have so many different inspiring moments to write for, and every film is different.
All different, all exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
So, what is the most challenging thing about your job?
I think that the time schedule usually is really challenging. The fact that you have to work so fast. So there's not a lot of time to kind of change things. You have to think on your feet, you have to think very quickly about what you're going to do, come up with lots of ideas, just in case the director doesn't like one of your ideas and you might have to change it. So you have to work fast, and the more you get used to working fast, the easier it becomes, but it can be quite challenging at times.
So for a certain sequence of a film, you might have 2 or 3 ideas about what you might want to do in case the director's saying, no, we don't want to go down that road, we want to go down a different tack.
Exactly. You might have to try out 2 or 3 different ideas and see if it fits in with their vision of what the film score should be. And so sometimes you have to work quite fast and come up with loads of ideas all the time. You can't have like composer's block, you know, like people say I've got writer's block and I can't write today. You've always got to have lots of ideas. And I think if you keep writing, and writing every day is quite useful, because you sort of keep the flow going and you never run out of ideas.
Fantastic, there's lots of insight there. We're now going to watch our final clip, and I think this is one of Debbie's favourite compositions from the film Tom's Midnight Garden. Let's take a look.
Debbie, we have worked in schools with film club members composing music to soundtrack film clips. It's called Film Club School of Rock. What do you reckon is the best way for young people to start making soundtracks for film projects? Maybe for people who haven't played an instrument before.
Just to watch the film over and over again and imagine the kind of music that's going to work for it. Try out lots of different things, try out different rhythms, different melodies, and see which one sits best with the film. And remember that you're accompanying the film, so think in terms of what you can bring musically to the film. If it's an action scene, it doesn't necessarily have to be fast music. It might just be dramatic music.
Just get out there and make a noise, watch some clips.
And before we go, the answer to our quiz, the greatest soundtrack of all time voted by AFI, is Star Wars.
Wow.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time now, but thank you so much for coming in and answering all our questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Debbie. And please don't forget to check out our competition page. We've got an Instagram competition where you can win some fab prizes just by sending in a great picture of your film club and what you're up to. And you can win some epic goodies, and we've got a filmmaking competition as well. There's lots going on. And make sure you check out the GCSE music resource that goes into a little bit more depth on film composition on Film World and on the Film Club website now.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We hope you enjoyed hearing from Debbie. Please join us again tomorrow at 4 p.m. for more Film Club Live. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.